Hello, YouTubers. Um, Joe here on August 30th, Friday, 2013, at 2:25 in the afternoon Eastern Time. Now, I'm going to try to confine myself to one relatively, serious topic today. The use of the Apostles' Creed during the burial service, specifically as it applies to the U.S. Episcopal Church, but perhaps in other churches as well, as far as whatever their practice may or may not be. If you consult the U.S. prayer book, which is the U.S. prayer book, the 79 prayer book. It came out in 76, but it was officially adopted in 79. It offers two burial offices: burial one, rite one, and then the burial rite two. Now the rite one closely follows the 1928 U.S. prayer book, and which was much beloved and still is in some quarters. But both of them make provision for using the Apostles' Creed. Now, what I had not appreciated is that the Apostles' Creed is not part of some of the set liturgy. It says "may be said." Now, that's a weasel word. May be said. Well, a lot of things may be done, can't they? Huh? I may just side turn this thing off and shut up. I don't think I'm going to. I may run out and bludgeon the surveyors, they're roaming around my place. But I'm not going to do that either, nor do I particularly want to, actually. They need to do their work. The bad news is going to come anyway, so they need to do their work. May, it says the Apostles' Creed may be said, all standing. That's in the 79 book. And now, interestingly, you go back to the 1662 Book of Common Prayer, the Church of England's 1662 Book of Common Prayer. The burial office, which is extremely short. It's 2 Psalms, the resurrection passage from 1 Corinthians 15, a series of prayers. It starts with the magnificent "I am the resurrection and the life" sequence. And then, after the Corinthians, maybe there's a sermon, maybe not, generally not, at least in the 1662 book. They obviously there can be one. Then out the door to the graveyard, and you do the in the midst of life we are in death, and then the dust to dust, ashes to ashes thing, and then there's about 3 or 4 more prayers, and there's a bug flying around, and that's it. It's very short. It's very short. Well, the reason for that was that 1662 was a plague year. Well, it was one of many plague years. And so when you're doing, 30 or 40 or 50 burials a day, you sort of have to make it fast. So, but in any case, there's no provision at all for the Apostles' Creed in the 1662 book. Now, I don't know what this 2000 book that they use now, that has been officially sanctioned by the Synod over there, the Bishop's Synod, Church Synod. In any case, I don't know if that makes provision for Apostles' Creed or not. So that's where it stands in terms of liturgical rubric, official liturgical rubric. Nonetheless, what's wrong with the Apostles' Creed? What's What's wrong with the Apostles' Creed? Before we get into that, I do urge people to look at the Dictionary of the Christian Church, the Oxford Dictionary of the Christian Church. My edition is edited by F.L. Cross and E.A. Livingstone. And look at the article on the Apostles' Creed. And then also, actually, Wikipedia does a pretty good coverage of it as well. And they also do they also do a good coverage of what was the sort of the precursor creed, the Roman Creed, or the Old Roman Creed, or the Old Roman Symbol, as it's sometimes called. And so essentially then, it gives you a certain amount of background as to the content of the Apostles' Creed. And one of the distinguishing features about the Apostles' Creed is, since it originated earlier than the Nicene, Constantinopolitan creeds, well, the Roman Creed certainly did. You know, the set form of the Nicene Creed became sort of official in the 700s after the Gallic Church and Charlemagne got involved in it. Then, you know, the Nicene Creed, what we call the Nicene Creed, or Nicene Constantinopolitan Creed, assumed its current form in the West after sort of an insertion of the Filioque clause, proceeding the Holy Ghost proceeding from the Father and the Son, which the Eastern Church doesn't use, and that's still a major point of contention. But that's a separate issue. But nonetheless, what the Apostles' Creed does not do is it doesn't get into the whole conundrum about the two natures of Jesus. Was he very God from very God, true God from true God, light from light? I mean, it doesn't address that like the Nicene Creed does. It basically says that, you know, I believe in God the Father, you know, maker of heaven and earth, and his Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. Period. And then it, you know, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, you know. Back in the early church, where you were still having this Arian controversy, Arians and Trinitarian Christians. Well, actually, Arianism is Trinitarian in a sense, but it's not Trinitarian in the sense that we consider Orthodox Trinitarian theology nowadays. Arian Christians were Christians. They believed in Jesus Christ, but not the way we believe in Jesus Christ, you know, in terms of the Trinitarian orthodoxy established by the Chalcedonian Council and so forth. But again, that's had nothing to do with the Apostles' Creed. In fact, the Wikipedia entry, which I found very intriguing, it said, well, Arians can use it, and so can Unitarians. The last time I chatted up a Unitarian, sometimes, you know, they're just out there talking to rocks and trees. Now, I like to talk to my trees, but I in no way think that they're divine or contain spirits. You know, they're wonderful, magnificent creatures of God, but that's like the way I talk to my dogs. Except the dogs would generally do what I ask them to do, told them to do. Well, that's getting a bit far afield. So, to get to what prompted this. So I noticed that we did these two magnificent funerals yesterday and today. And I noticed, well, yesterday, I think I may have mentioned it in my video yesterday, you know, there was no Apostles' Creed. Well, maybe not. I mean, maybe I didn't mention it. I mean, there was not an Apostles' Creed. But the fellow I discussed things with at church allowed as how that might be just a clerical error. Or maybe actually there may have been somebody else that hypothesized that. So today I noticed in the service bulletin that it was also left out. So I asked our rector, I said, I want to ask you a technical question. He said, fine. And I said, well, I noticed the creed wasn't used. Is there a reason for that? And he said, yes. I said, oh. And I thought maybe there had been some new UCAS issued by the U.S. Episcopal Church. I mean, Lord knows, you know. At any moment now, I'm waiting for him to basically say that, you know, Jesus Christ was just a really nice guy, and, you know. He says, you know, you notice the rubric says may. Well, indeed it does. Again, I think it's a weasel word. He says, he says, so I thought, and of course then he also said, a lot of other clergy think, feel. Are those the same words? No, not really, are they? That this is very offensive to some people. Well, if you're a believing Christian, how is that offensive to you? I mean, it's the least innocuous of all the creeds. How can you, if you're a Christian, how can you find that offensive? Well, he says, not all people that come to funerals are Christians. Well, okay, fine. He said, so I think as a courtesy, we don't need to offend them by sticking what we believe in their face. Let me cover that again. As a courtesy, I don't think we need to offend them by sticking our faith and our beliefs in their face. Well, if they're in a Christian church, we're going to take down all the crosses, you know, and all the little Trinitarian references with all the subtle triangle symbols, and you know, knock the Holy Ghost dove out of that stained glass window. I mean, you know, we wouldn't want to offend our guests, would we? Give me a break. Just give me a break. Well, you know, this is very reminiscent. Well, except it's slightly different. You know, this harkens back to the Easter Vigil nonsense that I carried on about back in March. You know, at least he didn't say it was too much trouble to have the parish administratrix type up the Apostles' Creed into the bulletin. Couldn't be bothered to do that. Well, that's, we wouldn't want to offend our guests. Oh, they're in a room full of Christians, presumably, and we wouldn't want to offend them. I'm going to tell you right now, I've been to some over the top, pretty much neo-pagan weddings, and was I offended? Yes. You know, was I saddened? Yes. Did it make me not want to go to the occasion because I knew the people involved? No. You know, I still wanted to. I mean, they'd invited me. I mean, I like these people. You know, wish them well. They wanted my presence. Fine, I went. You know, I mean, I certainly didn't join in the prayers to Mother Gaia. I didn't pray to the earth. I was a guest. I was courteous. See, I was a guest. I was courteous. See, I think that's how it should work. Well, obviously you don't abuse your guests, but so that I think the more I think about this, and admittedly it is. You know, it's 2:40 right now, and I got home at 1, and the service ended at 12. So I mean, it's still relatively. This is still a relative. I haven't really had time to really truly think through it, but I thought it was worth getting out there as soon as possible on this issue. So I'm going to shut up now before I get myself into trouble. As my dad said, there's only 2 things that get a man in trouble, and the other one's his mouth. So On that note, bye-bye, YouTubers.